Hey everyone, it's Saturday, and that means yet another My Hero Academia review coming at you. As always, I'd like to give a quick recap of last week's episode before hopping into today's. In episode 13, we got a cold open of a completely destroyed city, coupled with Shigaraki sporting a new do covered in blood. From there, we proceeded with Todoroki and Bakugo getting big ups from the press on their impressive hero work, more practice interviews for the rest of the class, All Might researching the quirks of the past One For All users for Deku, so he knows what kind of power he's in store for, and finally a nice Christmas celebration with all of our favorite heroes in training. After all of their partying was over with though, Todoroki approached both Deku and Bakugo with the proposition of joining him at his father's agency for their work studies. With the top 1A students working under Japan's top hero, who knows what kind of amazing training we'll get to see the boys get? Well, with this intro out of the way, we'll know soon enough. This week we're greeted with a cold open of Hawks talking on the phone with Dobby a few weeks prior to the current point in the story, so around the end of November or early December. Because of the high-end Nomu fight, Dobby has lost trust in Hawks, so the undercover hero is doing all that he can to convince him otherwise. Dobby takes the bait and decides to give Hawks one more opportunity to show his loyalty to the League, as well as other anti-establishment causes by doing something to someone other than the number one hero. Afterwards, he contacts the Safety Commission to inform them of the situation and to speak to him in code from now on. We then flash forward to Hawks arriving at Best Jeanist's apartment. Despite having only one lung left in his body from All For One's assault, he seems to be doing pretty well. So well, in fact, that he intends on coming back to the public eye, stating that there are still many in need of his reform. With that, we can assume one in particular being Bakugo. With his back turned to Hawks, he doesn't see the number 2 pull out a feather sword with a real serious look in his eyes, along with ominous music. I mean, surely Hawks wouldn't go that far, right? I mean, Endeavor almost did kick the bucket because of his undercover work, but he wouldn't really kill another hero, right? Well, we flash forward once more to Hawks, literally on edge, as he's been trying to get a hold of Dobby, noting that it's strange behavior. And would you look at that? There's a big old bag next to him. I mean, maybe it's just a fake body. I mean, you guys have probably seen Stranger Things. Those fake corpses stuffed with cotton are pretty convincing, right? I don't know. Hawks is being a bit sus, not gonna lie. Now we have the second opening to enjoy. Honestly, the song is pretty solid, and the visuals are stunning, but it kind of feels off. I know every new opening takes time to get used to, but this one in particular really feels the least My Hero-y out of all the openings that it's had. In regards to some of the more interesting points of the new visuals we have here, we see a large group of characters we haven't seen before, along with many shots of the League, so I think it's safe to put your money on these two groups making an appearance here sooner or later. Anyhow, with the new opening out of the way, we have the real bulk of the episode. It's New Year's Eve, and the UA students have been given permission to visit their families for a day, with the accompaniment of a pro hero, of course. Deku tells his mom of all the new things he's been experiencing since moving into the dorms, which does not seem to be very healthy for her faint heart. The best moment of all that he tells her about is the letter that he received from Eri. In the letter, we can see a lot of sloppy handwriting, spelling errors, and a very Goku-esque drawing of Deku. So unbelievably precious. Showing Deku that he is not adopted, his mother bursts out into gigantic waves of tears. Growing up quirkless, she thought non-stop about how she had to protect her child, but is now overjoyed and relieved seeing who he is now. Deku returns the favor of proving their relation by busting out a window with his tears. Seems his tears are even stronger now with that 20% of One For All he can control. Can't imagine how scary that'll be once he finally masters it. As they head into the new year, Deku and his mother part ways once again, but she definitely doesn't have the sad, worried look on her face that she once did. Parents will always worry about their children for sure, but the way she looks definitely shows that she trusts her son to be safe. Before Deku is fully off to Endeavor's place of business, we get another scene with Hawks, this time landing in front of a large mansion and being bombarded with questions by the weird slip and slide hero from a few episodes ago. As he berates him and talks about their standings, a mysterious character begins to put him in his place. Whoever this is, he's certainly not one of the good guys, as both Slide and Go and Hawks are being used to spy on the heroes, with Hawks naturally being the most effective of the two as he's covered with micro devices. We never see his face, but there's definitely an intimidating aura to him. I wonder what all of this is about. Perhaps Hawks is covering many bases and spying on multiple villain groups. Guess we'll just have to keep watching and see what's going on. Back to the Three Musketeers, Endeavor makes an attempt to greet them with a smile, but shows his disdain for the situation pretty quickly, outwardly exclaiming he wished it had only been Shoto doing a work study with him. With a hot-headed person like Bakugo, he easily matches Endeavor with a negative attitude, making him question his son and the company that he keeps. Deku, on the other hand, is just as enthusiastic as ever, despite being a bit scared of the Flame Hero since their encounter at the UA Sports Festival. Flashing back to their conversation with All Might, he gives his seal of approval, believing that Deku shouldn't be in harm's way from One For All acting up, while Bakugo is in a position to learn from the number one hero in another way, as both their behaviors have similarities to them. Coming back to the present, Endeavor also reminisces on his encounter with Deku at the Sports Festival, reciting the words Deku spoke to him. Before he can elaborate on why he brought this up, Endeavor begins to leave the three behind as he springs into action. We get a glimpse at a car accident with a peculiar event happening at it, the windows coming off the cars via being liquefied. At the center of this pandemonium, we see an old man speaking in a very doomsday-like manner. And of course, our favorite feathered hero is also at the scene. As Endeavor and his three student underlings make haste towards the scene, the old man, also known as Star Servant, continues his prophetic speech while collecting all the glass off of the buildings. He urges the citizens to run away, as he will be the one to rid the world of the darkness before launching an attack at Endeavor. I mean, yeah, I kinda get it. Naturally, a giant glass ball isn't going to be something that takes down the number one hero, being no more than a small inconvenience for Endeavor. Getting scorched just from the heat being turned up ever so slightly, Star Servant makes a run for it, with the Flame Hero hot on his tail. It seems he had a plan to ambush Endeavor, but that plan would immediately falter as the work-study kids come through to lend him a hand. Or at least, that was the plan. However, Hawks and that incredible speed of his beat them to the punch. As the villains get away, Star Servant gives one more jab at Endeavor, claiming his light is one that will bring darkness. Everyone's a critic, right? Being the fanboy he is, Deku freaks out about getting to meet Hawks and introduces himself. Hawks does know who he is from the sports festival, as well as Tokuyami, who is back at Hawks' agency for his work study. Bakugo is less thrilled with Hawks' arrival, angrily stating that he was faster than Hawks and didn't need him to take down those other villains. Next to approach Hawks is Endeavor, who wants to know what he wants. He says he doesn't want anything, but then proceeds to pull out a book titled Meta Liberation War, and asks if he's read it. Despite it being old, he talks about its newfound popularity and how the things talked about in it are predictions for the times they're all in today. He suggests that if he doesn't have time to read the whole book, then Endeavor should read the parts he's highlighted within the book. Being a real salesman for this, aren't you, Hawks? Its author was the leader of the Meta Liberation Army, and it's a name we should all be vaguely familiar with from last season, Destro. Destro was mentioned by Gentle Criminal when talking about the most famous of supervillains, so it's really interesting to see him get talked about again. During his preaching, Endeavor senses the off feeling Hawks is giving off, which is exactly what Hawks was hoping for. He hands the copy off to Endeavor, as well as a few for the boys, before giving one final recommendation of reading the highlighted parts of the book, especially the second part. Hawks heads off, and the four of them head back to Endeavor's agency. There, we get a good look at Endeavor's sidekicks, with a primary focus on Burnin. Knowing exactly what makes him tick, Burnin antagonizes Bakugo a bit, letting him know that he won't get a chance to shine with so many sidekicks at the agency, a challenge he's more than happy to accept. As they all get the rundown of how things work here, Bakugo only becomes more impatient with the desire to work, as they wait on Endeavor's instructions. From his office, Endeavor tries to make sense of Hawks' strange behavior from earlier while reading the highlighted sections he's recommended. He realizes him mentioning reading the second part was strange, and figures it's something he can't say out loud. After glancing over the highlighted sections, Endeavor makes the connection that Hawks was referring to the second word in each highlighted section, being the word he should read. As Hawks speeds off, he worries about being too roundabout with his message to Endeavor. However, it has to be kept as secret as possible, as there are pro-heroes in what he calls the Liberation Front. We cut back to Endeavor, frantically reading through the back, seeing that the words formulate the sentences. The enemy is the Liberation Army. They number over 100,000. In 4 months, they'll rise to action. And with all that, the episode ends. To speak briefly about the new ED, I just want to note that it's a very interesting choice in music for MHA specifically, but I dig it. The visuals of Hawks as a child with his Endeavor toy is compelling, as he's seemingly been watching him work since he was young, and that is clearly carried over with him to adulthood. But let me know what you all think in the comments down below. We've hopped right into this arc, but there's still something there shrouded in mystery, and I cannot wait to see how everything unfolds. But that's going to do it for me today. There might be no My Hero episode next Saturday, but you can bet your bottom dollar that I'll still be here with some more awesome anime content for all of you.